This podcast is sponsored by nobody.
Hey dudes, this is Marsha Dietlein, Lucy in Return of the Living Dead 2, and you're listening to Tommy Throwback Kovac on Splat from the Past. They're great to listen to while driving.
Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today I will be welcoming back the talented, the gorgeous Marsha Dietlein, who you all remember from Return of the Living Dead Part 2. We're going to be celebrating the 35th anniversary of that movie and get caught up on what she's been doing since we last talked. We talked like maybe 3 weeks before COVID started back in 2020, and a lot has happened since then. I'm going to find out what she's been up to, any new projects, convention appearances, etc. And I gotta tell you, Return to the Living Dead Part 2 actually holds up, even though it's not as good as the original. There's a lot of really funny comedy moments that you should go back and watch. It's pretty wild. Also, too, I don't know, there's just been some weird tension or pushback, I should say, maybe, between me and two different camps of rock musician families. I'm hoping I will get closure soon, but I'm paranoid in my own insecure mind, and I really want these interviews to happen between these two different camps of rock and roll families. You know, I mean, I'm finding out every day just how fucking two-faced, narcissistic, and weird people in show business really are. You know, you all know me. I'm very blunt, real, down to earth, and I'm also very well liked by many, especially in the cult film community. And I'm trying to get established in the rock and roll community. You know, I don't go looking for scandals. I just want to tell my idols how much I adore them and preserve oral history of their work. Because their work has entertained me since I was a kid. You know, can I do that? Is that so wrong? I've been doing this 6 years, and yes, it's not entitlement, it's not a rite of passage, but can I get some closure and some response, please? It's taken me forever to get an across-the-board good reputation in cult film. Rock and roll is taking a lot longer. I'm going to be 40 in June. Don't you want to see me host panels at nostalgic concerts? I guess many don't. So yeah, here is my new interview with Marsha Dietlein.
Hey!
Hey Marsha, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you. I'm happy to be back.
Yes, a lot has happened since we talked last time. We talked just weeks before the pandemic hit.
I know. I was thinking about that. I was like, God, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago. It's crazy.
Wow. How are you doing through it all?
It's been very emotionally trying, but I've gotten through it.
Good. Yeah, it's hard. You know, I had a daughter who was graduating high school and starting college, and it really just sucked for her, I have to say.
It sucked for a lot of people.
Yep. Anyway.
So I can't believe it's been 35 years since Return of the Living Dead 2. Can you believe it?
Oh no, I just feel so old. Ugh. I know, I can't believe it either.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, I watched it twice recently, and I can't believe how well it's held up. You know, I used to not like it, but now I like it a lot more because the acting and the humor is so on point. And yes, it's not the original by a long shot, but it's fun. It's got a hair metal soundtrack, all that good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think now people might appreciate it more because it's so like classic 80s cheese.
Mm-hmm.
And it's meant to be cheesy, and there are other like zombie things that are funny, like Shaun of the Dead and stuff. So I think now like the humor plays better actually than it did back then, because I think people were expecting a sequel to the awesome Return 1, and this was a completely different movie.
Absolutely, and it came out. It's funny. Between 1978 and 1984, that was the peak for slasher teen movies. But then there was a point by like 1985 to like 1989 or 90 where there was all these teenagers in trouble horror movies where there was zombies or vampires or some kind of supernatural forces, and this
Right.
was like right in the
Right.
middle of it. Because you had Night of the Demons, Night of the Creeps, Vamp, Slaughterhouse Rock, Chopping Mall, all these different ones.
All of which I have never seen.
Oh, they're all great. I only mentioned the
I'm
good ones.
sure. I'm sure.
So you told me the first time we talked that you were in an acting class and they were filming students on camera and you got an agent based on that, and that's what led to the audition.
Yeah, that's actually true. We did we did a showcase of our filmed scenes from the acting class, and that's where I got my agent. And yeah, I think this was one of my first auditions with him.
Yeah. What did you think of the script when you read it?
I mean, I thought it was funny, and I was like, what a great part. And I was like, I hope I get this. I mean, I laughed at first. I was like, of course, every actress gets their start, doing a zombie movie. Um, but I sort of laughed it off. But, as I got closer and closer to actually getting it, I was just like so excited, I mean, it was my first movie, and it was the lead in a movie. And I'd done a few commercials at that point, but that's it. So I was like, yeah. And I also loved that Lucy was kind of a badass, she wasn't like a wimpy, screamy, run and hide behind the guy kind of person. She was badass.
Oh, yeah,
Am I
absolutely.
allowed to swear? I'm allowed to swear on your podcast, right?
Oh, fuck yes.
Man.
Yeah, and you hadn't seen the original yet, right?
I hadn't. So when I was up for part 2, I watched part 1 with my buddy Dan Roebuck. I'm sure you know Danny.
Yep, you said his name many times the first time.
Yeah. But I remember because he was like so excited for me going through the process, So he's like, "Let's watch the first one," and I think he had seen it probably because he's a big horror film fan. But I just was. Wow, it was so like out there and fabulous. I thought, really, I was like, ours is going to be very different. There's not even a curse word hardly in it.
Oh, and there's no nudity either.
No nudity. I'm sure people were very disappointed in that.
Yeah, well, in your introduction scene, you're doing aerobics to a video which was very popular in the 80s. You got those pink tights, that blue leotard. And we see a tiny peek of your belly button, which I appreciate highly. And
Thank you.
yeah, were you into fitness in those days?
Yeah, I was a big aerobics person, and I lifted weights, and I belonged actually to this awesome all-women's gym in Glendale, California, and it was called Dee's Gym, and Dee was fabulous. She was this little old British lady, and so I loved working out there, and I even taught aerobics classes there.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice, yeah. Flashdance was huge at that time, and Jane Fonda.
Yeah, totally. And I was also, I was doing a lot of community theater. My first husband at the time owned a community theater in Glendale, and I was a dancer, so I was, doing a lot of like musical theater and dancing a lot too. So.
Nice. Yeah, that's Hannah Segal on TV that you're doing the aerobics to.
I know. It's kind of great though.
Yeah, and you had a lot of hair in the movie too. Did they tell you that to cut it or keep it?
No, they loved my hair. I still have a lot of hair. It's crazy. But I liked, the people. It was so great. The Del Armstrong, who was doing the makeup, he was the makeup artist, but he had done the makeup for the Wizard of Oz.
Wow.
I don't know if I told you that before. Like, he was a legend, and his daughter was doing the hair. So that crazy hair when I'm doing aerobics was really what my hair was like, but they kind of straightened it and calmed it down for like the rest of the movie.
Wow, he was like probably 90 by that time, right?
He was in his 80s, I think, honestly. Yeah. I mean, he's like, here's my resume, and it's literally a book.
Yeah.
A book. And, and he was like Lana Turner's personal makeup artist for 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, he was really amazing.
Wow, my great aunt was actually friends with Lana Turner when they were young.
Oh, she probably knew Del.
By that point, by the time she got to Hollywood, they weren't talking anymore. But
Um,
but yeah, oh my God, I gotta look up his career later. That may have been his last film. Who knows?
it might have been, and it's funny because Dana and I laugh about like Dana's like I've never worn so much makeup in a
Hmm.
movie because it was like that thick pink. And Dana also he also credits Dell because Dana had really bad skin,
Hmm.
and Dell Armstrong like took him to a dermatologist and got him on medication and like cleared his skin up.
Nice, nice.
But I think that part of that was why we were wearing a lot of makeup. I mean, I didn't have that skin, but Dana did.
Michael Kenworthy, who played your brother Jesse, he was so adorable. He looked like a kid you'd see in a 1950s cheesy horror sci-fi movie. He had that Ronnie Howard as Opie look to him, you know. Did, did,
Yeah.
did you and him become close?
Oh yeah, I loved him. I mean, it's funny too because I just did a convention with him in October.
Oh yeah.
And it's the first time we corresponded via Facebook
Hmm.
with him as an adult. Like we were friends for a while on there, and then I think he's not on there anymore.
Hmm.
But it was so interesting to hang out with him as a man. Because he
Yeah.
was like my kid brother. But I do think he had like a massive crush on me when we were filming, which was really, really cute. So he was so sweet to me, and we got along great. And I have two younger brothers and, three younger sisters, or two younger sisters, one older. But, so I come from a big family. So he
Yeah.
and I we got along great. He was really sweet with me. And he says, I was kind of an asshole. And I was like, no, you weren't. He goes, I kind of was a smart aleck. And I was like, no, you weren't.
Well,
He's so sweet. Yeah.
well, having a crush on you, that's a given.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah. Gary Davis was the stunt coordinator on that movie. I gotta get him on here. He's done many
Oh,
iconic movies like Young Frankenstein.
no, he was great too. But it's funny because I was just at a different con with Dana, and Dana kept sharing how Gary kept getting hurt on our movie, and I was like,
Hmm.
he did? I don't even remember that. He's like there is a scene where when we're all in the car, like
Yeah.
leaving Doc Mandel's, and we crash through the garage door.
Right.
When it actually happened, I think it was probably Gary. He was playing a zombie and he fell and he actually completely shattered the windshield
Oh wow.
in the shot. You can barely see it, and then they had to cheat it for the rest of the movie that hadn't happened. But we were all like in the front seat. I'm like, that might not have been so safe. You know.
Yeah,
Um,
I have talked to so many stunt performers. Like getting a broken finger is like a walk into the park with them. I mean, it is just
yeah,
amazing the amount of guts that they have to do what they do.
I know. And Gary he was very, very like seasoned and professional even at that point. Very handsome too, by the way.
Yeah.
Gotta say, easy on the eyes.
It's funny. I don't think that the makeup on the zombies hold up well as it does in the first one, but they look fine for what they are, And the humor of them is what really keeps them afloat. I think. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not quite as silly as Sam Raimi's Evil Dead zombies are, which are more like Three Stooges like. But those zombies are complete morons, and they think that they're still alive.
Right. Right, which I love. And then I'm sure you know this, but the sort of main zombies were only like maybe 5 or 6 people
Hmm.
that they just put different makeup on.
Yeah.
And Brian Peck, of course, was one of those. Um, and he's like the Michael Jackson zombie. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure you probably know more about them than I do, quite honestly.
A little bit, not much, but a little bit.
They all got the special makeup, and then like all the extras wore masks and stuff.
Yeah, that's probably what it was. Probably because they were more mask-like. That's probably why.
Hmm.
I crack up when I see that one zombie trying to get out of the grave, and he's having his hand stepped on, and then that one
Yeah.
zombie kicks him down.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. He steps on his head.
Steps on his head. Yeah, kicks him down there. Yeah, and of course you got Alan Troutman, as Tarman. I mean, he's so great.
I just finally got to meet him at this convention in October, and what a lovely, lovely human being. And I had no idea that he was like a Jim Henson
Yeah.
puppeteer.
Oh
What
yeah.
he's had such an incredible career, and he's like, I did this, he did these 2 horror films, and he goes to conventions, and oh my gosh, the people line up like crazy for him. But what a lovely person, what a nice man.
I got to meet him at Monsterpalooza on a day where he didn't have too many people come into him, and he was so great. And then I interviewed him not long after that, and
Oh, that's cool.
he's a great guy. Yeah,
Yes.
I didn't even know about the Jim Henson stuff either until I was doing research on him.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Tom's face is hilarious. Like every time I see him terrified, like. Um, whether I see him in these or Friday the 13th Part 6, you know, he told
Yeah.
he told me he hated making this movie, but he loved the craft services.
He did not like our movie, but he had a good time with us. He liked the cast too.
Oh
I'm gonna
yeah,
say that. Tommy is he and Jimmy were not happy on this movie. Tommy especially. He just didn't get along with Ken, and he'll be like, "I hated that guy," and I really liked Ken. I didn't have a problem, but we had fun together. We had a lot. And you know what? Tommy told me recently that
hmm
he and Jimmy Karen had the same birthday,
hmm
and that every year before Jimmy passed, they had dinner together on their birthdays.
Oh, that's so
That's so sweet.
heartwarming.
I know. I
Yeah,
know. They were very, very close.
yeah. Oh my God. I love it when Billy's mother is about to be eaten by Billy, and the look on her face is just priceless in that cutaway.
I know. That's what we're all trying to figure out what happened to Thor,
Yeah,
because he would have some following, I would think. The guy who played Billy.
yeah. I don't know. Um,
No, none of us know. Michael didn't know. I asked Michael Kenworthy about it. He's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, horror movies back in the day, I mean, a lot of people are still with us, obviously, on social media, and they do the cons and stuff. But there's a lot of people that disappeared that I guess, didn't have a good life following the movies.
Or they just didn't have any interest in being a part of that world, right? And
Oh
did
yeah,
other things. Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot of people that don't. I'm sure they'd be shocked if they really, really found out just how much of a cult following the movies had.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't do. I only did my first con like right before COVID, and I
hmm
had no idea. I mean, once I got on Facebook and people started reaching out a little bit, although I try to keep my Facebook page more to people that I, actually know, or like you, we've talked and hung out, so that I'm like, yeah, or whatever, or certain people I meet at
hmm
conventions and stuff, that we sort of become friends, and that's really so great. Um, but I had no idea. I had no idea that the movie had like such a cult following.
hmm Yeah, I think it's interesting because Laura Marr made the movie instead of Hemdale, and Orion did like the original. That was pretty common in those days. One studio made a movie, they didn't want to do the sequel, and so it was made at another studio and stuff. Did Laura Marr believe in the movie?
Yeah, I think they did. I mean, I remember we opened on like, I want to say 2,000 or 2,500 screens
hmm
across the country, which is a pretty huge belief if they're going to, send that many prints of the movie out. And I think we were in the top 5 box office for the weekend that we opened.
hmm
So I think they did believe in it. They certainly put a lot of money into, getting it out there.
Yeah. How many days of filming was it?
I think it was about a month, maybe 4 weeks, 5 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
Uh, and half of that, was night shoots. So you really felt like a vampire because you'd go to
Yeah.
work at 5 or 6 at night and work till 6 in the morning or whatever, and sleep all day. And it was really quite cold. I remember it was January, and we were sort of up in the desert north of Los Angeles, and it snowed and everything. Of course, we none of us have coats on in the movie, right? Because we're just escaping zombies. You don't think to grab your winter coat in
Yeah.
California. um, but yeah, so I think that's part of why we all bonded so much because you really are kind of stuck in this alternate reality, when you're doing that many night shoots in a row.
Oh yeah, I mean, when Martin Scorsese made After Hours, it was all night shoots. And
Right.
Griffin Dunn, he abstained from alcohol and sex during those 8 weeks that they filmed.
What a bummer.
Yeah, made a
Well,
great.
probably, you don't really want a day drink, I guess.
No, no, no. It made a great film, though.
It is a great film. I love that film.
It is. It's a underrated masterpiece, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's so fabulous and still continues to be so great.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's the history of film, is what Scorsese is.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Did you see the third Return of the Living Dead movie?
I did not.
Yeah, Brian Usna, who did the Reanimator movies, he directed it. I talked to him a couple years ago, and I wanted to bring the movie up, but he's one of those guys, you ask him a question, it takes him a half hour to answer, and so I asked him 4 questions in 2 hours, and
Oh my god.
it didn't come up.
How is it? How is it? How do you like it?
It's okay. I mean, the first 2 are way better, I think.
When was it made? Do you know?
I think 1993.
So it was, and we were 1988-ish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys shot it in 87, and it came out early 88.
Right. So that wasn't too much longer after Hours.
Did you guys have a rap party?
Huh. I don't know. I don't remember. How sad is that? I remember we had a big premiere cast and crew screening on the
Right.
Lorimar lot, which was really fun. And my husband at the time couldn't go, so Dan Roebuck went with me to the screening, of course. And that's how long, that's how far back we go, right? So,
Mhm.
But I don't remember a rap party. I mean, probably if we were in night shoots, I don't know. There must have been something. But I do know, Linda Hassani, who was Ken Wiederhorn's assistant on the movie,
Mhm.
she had a lot of parties and post filming, and a lot of the cast and crew would go to her house for parties. So it's possible we had a rap party, but I don't really remember. It was 35 people, Tommy.
Back then, horror was considered the bastard stepchild of the industry. Do you think that this movie held your career back in any way?
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, the only thing I think is my agent at the time was like, well, you need to just star in movies now because you starred in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay. And then I wouldn't go in on smaller stuff. And that was kind of ridiculous because I had just done one movie.
Right.
So that might have sabotaged some stuff happening. I ended up leaving him. I don't remember how many years later. A few years later, I changed agents, and then I started doing more Herman's Head and Night Court, television sitcoms and stuff like that. And that was maybe 2 or 3 years later after Return of the Living Dead. So I started doing more stuff like that. And that was what I really should have been doing all along, rather than trying to star in movies that, Molly Ringwald was starring in, or Ali Sheedy, or all those awesome 80s chicks.
Yeah. We recently lost an alumni of the first Return of the Living Dead, Clu Gulager. You told me that you worked with him after this one.
I did. So I also got to see Clu. Had I done this, I got to see him at that first convention I did. Clu was there, and I'm so glad because I got to hang out with him the whole weekend. And I worked with him briefly on a movie called Eddie Presley that Dwayne Whitaker directed and wrote and starred in. And he, Dwayne and I were friends. Dwayne and Dan are really good friends too. So I've known Dwayne almost as long as I've known Dan. And so he put us in a scene together, which I've actually never seen. I'm like, Dwayne, how have I never seen this movie or this scene? And so I play like this girl off the bus from Ohio who wants to be an actress, and Clu plays this like totally sleazy agent.
Yeah.
And he's so great. And every time he couldn't remember a line or something, he would just like mop his brow and be like, "Oh, Hollywood."
Yeah, he was just so great. You know, he was just this wonderfully eccentric force of nature that people liked working with. You know, he taught. He taught acting. You know, he taught acting to a character actor I know named John Goff, who's maybe a decade younger than him. And when he first came to L.A., he was in his classes when he was on the Virginian. Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
And I actually talked to the Virginian, James Drury, 2 weeks before he passed. That was his last interview, and I mentioned Clu, and I don't know I don't know if it was because of his age, but he like I mentioned all these like people working with, and like Clu was the only one he didn't mention.
Oh.
Yeah, I wanted to hear what he thought about working with him.
Well, he was. I can tell you, he was a class act, and
yeah.
And having spent that weekend with him, I mean, he was 94 or something at that convention,
Probably.
Maybe 93. I mean, he was, and he just was sharp as a tack, you know. And he loved. I was like, I was the girl in Eddie Presley, and he was like, oh my gosh. So then he had to tell everybody he met at the convention that we had done Eddie Presley together, which was very sweet.
Yeah, and you know, everyone swears up and down that on the first Return of the Living Dead, he threw something at Dan O'Banion and it shattered into a million pieces, and he maintained that it never happened.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What does Tommy say about that?
Yeah, because they were always at odds, you know, him and O'Banion. Yeah.
But they were friends, right? Weren't they buddies too?
I don't.
Or no?
I don't think so. I think that they were really at odds. Yeah.
Ah, interesting. Interesting. Well, he was certainly a sweet man when I met him. Didn't throw anything at me.
Did you see Daniel in the Munsters reboot?
Of course I did.
Yeah.
Of course I did. I thought he was great.
I gotta tell you, I was bored after 20 minutes, but from what I saw of Daniel as Grandpa, I thought he had Al Lewis's essence down to a T and made it his own. I just thought it was too much of a slow build, you know, for the origin story, you know.
Yeah, you kind of have to stick with it because at first it was a little slow, and then it gets really, really fun towards the end, like super fun, and it has a great Halloween sequence that is fantastic.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I laughed a lot. I thought Dan was great. I thought the whole cast was good, but I loved the look of it. I think the way all the colors, Rob Zombie uses them, I thought it looked fantastic.
Oh yeah, they did great with the makeup and everything. You know, I don't know. I was just like, come on, get to the point. You know.
Yeah. I get it. I get it.
Maybe I'll go back and watch that party sequence alone. You know.
No, you should. Once you get to the point, then it just takes off. Like once they move to America, it takes off, or wherever they move to. I think it's America. Where do they move? Where the Munster house is? America, right?
Mockingbird Lane.
Yes, exactly.
So, do you have any convention appearances coming up?
Not that I know of. I actually just reached out to Mikey Perez, my agent, and I was like, hey, I want to do some more stuff. He's like, I have some things in the works. So he's like, I'm working on some things, so I'll get back to you. I was kind of hoping to do the one in Monroeville. They do in Monroeville, Pennsylvania. They actually do them at the mall where they shot Dawn of the Dead, which I thought would be really fun. But he said this year it's kind of only a George Romero thing, so we're not George Romero. I did do one there last year in Evans City, Pennsylvania, which is close by, but it's a Living Dead weekend, so that's a different one.
Yeah,
but that was really fun.
Yeah, the first Return of the Living Dead gets represented at Living Dead weekend because it's kind of borrowed from Night of the Living Dead. So John Russo and what's his name, Steiner, they get like credit for it. So it's kind of an indirect Romero thing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. And he was there. John Russo was there.
Yeah, I've interviewed him. Sweet guy.
He's so sweet.
What's the craziest thing anyone's ever asked you to sign?
I have signed a few belly buttons. I think that might be it.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God, would you sign mine if we meet in person?
Absolutely. Absolutely. With permanent marker.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah, because people tell me all the time they are always signing body parts at conventions, and
Yes.
sometimes it makes them very uncomfortable. But I'll tell you, I interviewed Tom Savini's niece, Melissa, and she's
Uh-huh.
an absolute force of nature. I asked her what was the craziest thing she's ever asked to sign, and she says it hasn't happened yet. And I said, well, people tell me they sign a lot of body parts, and she's like, oh, if someone wanted me to sign a penis, I would.
That's right. I will say at this last convention, I signed this fabulous like drag queen won the costume contest.
Hmm.
I think she was a dragon, and anyway, she brought her big trophy around, so I did sign that, and that was kind of pretty cool. Oh, and then at this last convention too, someone had made a really beautiful guitar, like a wooden guitar with the Living Dead logo and everything painted on it, like
Hmm.
the poster painted on it, and that was kind of fabulous. And they had everybody sign that. And also my friend, this guy Charlie Dillon came, and he'd made the drum with
Hmm.
Tarman inside,
Yeah.
and that was pretty awesome. So we all signed that.
Nice, nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I bring my posters, or
yeah.
uh, I still collect VHS tapes at this point in my life. I go on eBay and I buy them, and I used to own 2,000 at one point, but when I was homeless, I had to give them all away.
Oh my gosh! But you're not homeless anymore, right?
Oh, not for like six and a half years.
Good. Good. Oh, I'm sorry you lost all your VHSs though. I think I only have a copy of my movie on VHS.
Yeah, I mean, I'm nowhere near 2,000, but I got a lot of them back that are really sentimental to me, so I'm happy about that.
Oh, good. Well, if I can find one, I'll bring one for you.
Oh,
If I can
thank
find
you.
one for you.
So do you have
I
any?
have to be-
Do
Oh,
you,
sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, do you have any upcoming movie roles or anything you'd like to talk about real quick?
Yeah, I have a film called Confession that is a really good thriller. It premiered at the Woodstock Film Festival. When was that? A few months ago,
Hmm.
and it's coming out on March 10th, and it's going to be in select theaters and then on streaming platforms. But I don't have all the details yet. But
Nice.
I'm excited about that. It's a good movie. I like it a lot, and so that's coming out, and then. Um, another movie I did with Dan Roba called Lucky Louie. I think we're going to have a premiere in April
Hmm.
in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, where we film, and that will be coming into select theaters as well.
Lucky
So hopefully,
Lucky Louie. I think that was the name of one of Louis C.K.'s TV shows.
now poor unlucky Louie.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I will keep an eye out for those
Okay.
two. And real quick, I have a joke for you.
Okay.
And wow, this is a coincidence. Brought up Louis C.K. Here's the joke. What do you call a boy that doesn't masturbate?
Stupid.
A liar.
There you go.
A lot of people are
You
always
know what I was going to say? This
what
might be better. A Mormon.
um, people are always guessing the punchline, and like I've had maybe a
I
hand.
like the liar.
I've had maybe a handful of people get it right, but a Mormon, oh, that is brilliant, Marsha. I love
That's
it.
a good one. Yeah, I think you might have to use that.
Yes, I'm going to use it.
You can take credit for it.
No, no, I will credit you because you are awesome, and I thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
coming back on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's great to talk to you again.
Yes, and I hope this is the year that we finally meet in person. So
I do too. Yes, I will always post if I'm going to cons, so you'll see it on my Facebook page.
awesome. Well, you have a great day and be safe out there in this crazy world.
I know. You too, Tommy. Take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. Marsha Dietlein. Ain't she a sweetheart? And isn't she fun? I just love her. I hope I get to meet her at a con and have her sign my belly button. I don't think I'll have her sign it. Maybe just show it to her and she can poke it or something. I don't know. I don't know why people get body parts signed. I really don't. Well, until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying there's no shame in living in the past because the present sucks. Later, dudes.